Francesca, hello.
Howdy, Dolphin.
Howdy. You don't understand. There's an inside joke there. Maybe we'll explain it later. So today, Francesca and I are going to jump into the ring and play and maybe mud wrestle a little bit. We're going to talk about attachment. And Francesca has two topics in particular she wants to get into today. They're rich, they're juicy, they're going to help. The first one, let's talk about grief, loss, and anniversaries. That was the one that really kind of you started with, and it really touched something in me.
Yeah, yesterday was an anniversary of my dad's death. And what I notice is that when there's these anniversaries of trauma, which could be, the end of a marriage or a relationship, which could be a traumatic circumstance that happened, a car accident even, when there's an anniversary of a death, I notice that it's not always fresh. It's not always right here. But as this anniversary comes up, I actually started to notice I'm feeling more sad. Why am I feeling more sad? Is anything happening in my life? And I thought, it's my dad's, the anniversary with my dad. And it wasn't conscious, but my body still started to feel it. My emotions still started to feel it. And I'm a compulsive overeater in recovery and also a sex and love addict in recovery. So in the past, when uncomfortable emotions would arise, I would turn to something that would numb them. So what will distract me? What will numb this? Because I didn't have tools to actually, they say process emotions, to work with emotions. You're like, what the heck is that? What is working with an emotion? I only knew how to suppress an emotion or to vomit it at you. If you're close to me, then maybe my anger, my sadness, my fear, my discomfort is going to come directly towards you. And even something about my dad could end up by the end of the day having your name on it. You're upsetting me because I did not have the tools to say, something's going on in here. Let me look. So now I actually view it as an opportunity. What's going on in here? What can I face if the radio inside, if the speaker system inside has been turned up for some reason, this is an opportunity to actually listen and work with it in some way. So I think it might be interesting to talk a little bit about what are the ways that maybe you and I work with emotions instead of...
Well, as you're speaking, what came to me is Gordon Neufeld. So Gordon Neufeld is one of the most kind of prolific researchers and experts in attachment. And he speaks about attachment as a verb. He talks about the child attaching to the caregiver, attaching to parent. And he speaks about whether the child is attached or not. And what I think is an interesting way to approach it or to look at attachment, especially attachment wounds and insecure attachment, is it's not the pain or the wound or the dysregulation in and of itself that becomes problematic long term. It's that in the context of a lack of attachment. So the caregiver is actually providing a connection point, an access point for the child to be connected, to be in relationship, and to be supported in getting regulated and repairing whatever that wound or rupture is. And that informs the child's system that yes, ruptures happen, yes, wounds occur, yes, there's pain, but that's all held in the context of loving relationship. And in the absence of that loving relationship, the child does whatever it feels like it needs to do to find ways to regulate and attach on its own. And we can attach to things that are not good to attach to. So, when I look at mental illness and addiction, I actually see that as the downstream consequences of insecure attachment.
100%.
They're attaching to something that delivers some kind of regulating influence, but it's not relational. And so then it's missing so much of the deeper levels of the meaning of life and of what actually feeds and nourishes us in life. And so, if we're talking about how we kind of return to these pieces, you said a piece before we even pressed record that I would love to start with, which is a lot of people are like, hey, the world out there is messed up and the world needs to change and let's fix it and change it and let's make sure that people get what they need. And that's relevant. We need to talk about those things. But I think that's problematic when that's the only aspect of the dialogue is what's wrong out there. And on the other side of the spectrum, it's okay, well, how do I take responsibility? How do I care for? How do I be the container for my own repair and integration? And that's crucial. But if that doesn't include our relationships with the outside world and the people close to us, we're lost. So it is a both and. How do we properly integrate those? How do we balance those? And what you said, I think, is crucial, is like, where do you currently have most access? Especially for someone who's really struggling with attachment right now, struggling with a sense of insecurity, a sense of not being able to find the love that they want. It's like, where?
Overwhelming emotions, where the
Totally.
emotions just get so big, whether it's the sadness or the anger or the self-doubt or whatever it is, it gets so big. It's the system is just going into overload. And then where is access to soothing the nervous system, to calming down, to feeling safer? And in some ways, what are positive distractions and how much versus negative? Like some people work out to come back into regulation, but I've actually known people who've become addicted to working out.
Right, which is it's like another attachment issue, right? They've attached to the working out being their primary source of connecting to something that helps them feel regulated and solid.
And social justice activism, attaching to, I'm always going to be out saving the world, and maybe I'm not relating to my own children, or I'm not really relating to my own partner, and I'm certainly not relating within. However, all things in moderation. There's nothing wrong with saying, okay, maybe I do need to be out with people a little bit, or maybe I do need to sit with my journal, or maybe I do need to watch a show, to see if we can regulate enough for me, this is what I do, is that how can I regulate enough to be ready to do some inner healing work? So there's distraction, which could look like positive distraction, working out, helping the world, etc. But there's a point where it's still a distraction. And then there's, I'm just taking down the level enough so that now I can say, for me, it's like, what's back there? So the bigger the emotional reaction in the present, even to a breakup, even to a death, even to not getting the job that I wanted, the bigger the reaction, or being fired, the bigger the reaction, what I've discovered, the more there's something rooted in my past. Mm-hmm. That big reaction is sitting on top of something. Mm-hmm. So I've started to ask myself questions like, what am I thinking? Like, what are the actual thoughts? I'm always going to be alone. I'm not good enough. I never get appreciated. I mean, what are the thoughts? And what are the feelings? And maybe sensations too. Maybe my back is tight. Maybe the feeling is despair, or maybe the feeling is loneliness, or maybe the feeling is anger. What's the youngest that I had these thoughts and had these feelings and sensations? And then for me, I go looking. Like, sometimes it helps me to literally walk and be asking myself as I walk, what's the youngest? What's the youngest? What's the youngest? And it's like I'm paging through my life. And then I finally get to whatever the youngest is that I can get to. And when I'm there, I actually say, when you were little, I was little. I couldn't protect you. I couldn't defend you. I could not speak on your behalf because they were not able to listen. But good news, I've grown up. And in my mind, I show like a movie of my life where I might say, these are the clothes in my closet. This is my, home temple. This is, I get to be interviewed, where I start to show a movie of my life. And I ask this part of me, I say, is it good enough? Is there something that you need more of, less of, or different? And then I say, I had to break trust with you to survive, but now I want to rebuild that trust. And you don't have to trust me yet. It's my job to show up, to check in, and to build a trustworthy relationship with you. And when I do that, something calms down. And I'm able to come back to the present and say, from my adult self, is there now a request to make? Is there now an invitation for collaboration? Is there now a maybe even something to share, or a limit or a boundary? Mm-hmm. So with my dad's death and these feelings that I was feeling, when I did some of the soothing of this younger part and parts of me, when I came back to my adult self, like for the first time, I thought, you know what? I think I've got 2 older brothers. I think I need to leave some messages for one of my brothers. I think that I've been trying to get him to talk to me about his childhood. But I think what I actually need to do is just tell him a little bit about my childhood with no shame or no make wrong. I think I was experiencing our childhood different than you. And I think that some of the things that happened had me distanced from you. And I'm curious if maybe you felt that I didn't appreciate you, or I didn't see you, or maybe that I was rejecting you. And I want to let you know that it actually wasn't about you. It's that I didn't feel safe in our family.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I never thought of saying it that way until I went in and actually, talked to these younger parts. Because I don't know about your brain, but in my brain, if these suppressed parts, there's a lot of bandwidth that's my brain is taking up, either suppressing them or they're taking over me. Like, their voices are so loud in my head, and that's still taking up a lot of bandwidth. What is missing is my creative, collaborative, visionary bandwidth, the part of my brain that can come up with new ideas. Like, I could share with my brother that it's not about him. The reason I've been so distant isn't actually about him as a human. And those kind of thoughts just aren't available until I soothe what is underneath, not suppress.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much that I would like to kind of pull threads from. We're talking about grief and loss. I think I want to speak a little bit to like how and why the things arise in the cyclical way. Like, if you had a death of someone close to you, when they passed and or where they passed, or what was going on for you when you found out, when those type of external factors show up again, that part of your loss and grief is completely alive again. And I think that that's by design. It's by design that these pieces that are still not fully complete will arise in a kind of activated way. We would call them maybe a trigger. And that one of the big challenges and barriers to our own integration is any way in which we make that cycle wrong. Like, oh, no, not again, or, oh, I thought I was done with this, or, all of this way our modern, especially Western culture has like made death wrong, made pain wrong, made what's difficult about life wrong. And then how are we going to make our way to integration that intrinsically includes facing and feeling and caring for those pieces that are most wounded by life? And so like the other piece I want to weave in is just, I believe a healthy way to think of attachment is it's not explicitly and specifically about our relationship with mom and dad. Mom and dad count for 40% or so of our attachment style. I think it can be stronger than that. I don't think that's like an absolute number. It's just that aggregate across all people, it's about 40% predictive of our attachment style. And so that means that brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, coaches, school environments, friends, movies we watch, nature, our experience in nature, like actually everything that we experience influences how we attach, because attachment isn't only our attachment to people, it's our attachment to life. How have I learned to know myself in relation to this outside world? That's what attachment is. And so if I look at it that way, then everything is a proxy for my relationship with life. And it may be that our relationship with our parents is the kind of, the apex proxy. And so we should care for that relationship as best we can. But what that means in a beautiful way is that whatever didn't get handled with mom or dad, whether they're around and just not ready, willing, able to come to the table, or they've passed, we can still heal that attachment. So that to me is like the inspiring piece around attachment, is that it's so much more broad and inclusive than I think a lot of the mainstream kind of conversation about attachment is, which is like anxious avoidant and why is my partner doing this and that. And I love all that. And we need to get in and figure out how to dance that dance. But attachment is actually something much deeper and broader. It's really the blueprint of how we learn to be in relation to life, this outside world. And
you remind me of the indigenous American statement, which is all my relations, meaning I'm related to everything, the trees, the yard, the sky, the place that I buy my groceries, that I'm related to all of it. And so what is right relationship? What is right relationship with each of these things? And am I, this gets to, I think, our other topic of the relationship with me. Am I related to me, the complex, multifaceted selves that are within? Am I related to my body? Am I related to my sensations? And then how am I related to everything that's out here? And when I think of like, what is, I'm not related. There was a point where I recognized that I didn't trust anything. Like I didn't trust my family. I didn't trust my friends. I didn't trust my boss. I didn't trust me. I didn't trust God. I had no trust. So in a way, I was not related. So to have no trust is to not have a relationship. And how can I start to rebuild relationship? And I was scanning, is there a person that I could start to rebuild trust with? Is it God? Is it a tree? What can I start to build trust with? When I scanned, it was me. I think I need to start with rebuilding trust with me. How do I do that? I think I need to start listening inside, asking questions like, what is right for me right now? And if I hear more than one voice or I have more than one pull, not skipping over that, but actually slowing down. So if you say, hey, Francesca, you want to go out for ice cream? And it's not a clear yes, to actually sit with, hey, it's not a clear yes yet, or can I get back to you? Or not today, but could you ask me next week too? Because there's something that I need to check on. Okay, who's inside? What do you think about, you're afraid to eat ice cream because you're recovering compulsive overeater. You're afraid it's going to trigger your sugar issues. You would like to eat ice cream because you love the taste of ice cream. You would like to get to know Dolphin better, but you are afraid to get to know Dolphin better. Okay. So I need to sit with these. Okay. Now a week later, I can say to you, if we could find something that is frozen yogurt or maybe lower sugar. And then also I'm curious, why do you want to have ice cream with me? Parts of me just kind of want to know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's to me, I needed to go here. But now for you, was it a different route?
No, but what I want to say, because I do believe wherever the doorway is, take it, right? If there's a doorway into healthy, nourishing attachment, go. And if someone's in front of you and you feel like you're a big mess inside, but being with them really grounds you and allows you to regulate, don't avoid that because someone said, oh no, it's always inside. And there's a both and. The trouble with externalizing the kind of locus of relating and attachment is that it's circumstantial and it's not within your particular kind of authority. My internal world, I actually do have access to a certain domain of authority around how I relate. How I relate to what's going on in me is the locus of my authority in my life. I am the instrument of my relating to my outside world. And so whereas it's fine to just be nourished by a connection, and that does something to the nervous system that's good, an orientation that is dependent on the outside to be a certain way so that then I can relate in a way that's good for my internal world is inherently problematic. So that's the piece that I bring is don't make connection to the outside world and what's nourishing or that feels good about that wrong. That's not a good road to go down. But so long as I make that the first priority, that's my reference point. Should I connect? Should I open? Should I relate in a way that's curious and willing to be in what's uncomfortable? And if I'm looking outside first to go, oh no, it's not safe out there, so I'm just going to do whatever most makes me feel as safe and secure as I can right now, that's me orienting to whatever I've used in the past to cope with my pain in the absence of loving relationship. So again, I think we can become less circumstantial in how we hold our pieces and how we start to integrate. And we don't want to do that in a way that in no way excludes the outside world and that it in no way excludes the connections and relationships that we have with people and the value that holds.
Yeah, I think, it's definitely a both and. And what I think I'm hearing in this is, other humans, even if they adore us or even if they're, super healthy, they might not always be available. So if I'm not,
they surely will not always be available.
So if I'm not creating an infrastructure that holds me sooner, if I'm not at some point doing that, when they inevitably can't be there because of death, because of illness, because of busyness, because of any number of things, even if they really want to be, I'm now shattered. I'm now without support. And one of the things I'm working on too is holding that people are imperfect and that's different than dangerous. Mm-hmm. So because people in my life have been emotionally dangerous or sexually dangerous or sometimes even physically dangerous, parts of me that want to protect me can look at a mistake, imperfection, a flaw, a character flaw that actually exists in their personality and project that as Therefore, they are dangerous, or
Mhm.
they will do something that's dangerous to me.
Yeah.
So one of the levels that I'm now working on, but I needed an infrastructure inside to be able to do it, is they do or say something, you might do or say something that actually, it has happened, that bother me, that trigger me, that upset me, that isn't right for me in that moment. And to be able to turn inside and say, I hear you, I hear you're angry, or I hear you're frightened, or I hear you disagree. But now that I have an infrastructure of something that is bigger than my trauma, bigger than my protection, let me get curious. Let me get curious. Let me talk to the person. How do they respond if I say what you said bothered me, or I don't agree with you? So in my family, to disagree would be to be punished. It would
Yeah.
be to be hit or, yelled at. So how does this person, instead of assuming they're going to be dangerous, how do they actually respond?
And you talked about the stereo earlier. I often refer to an equalizer metaphor. So like there's these certain bands of experience that we've had experiences with, and we've either turned the volume up on that particular experience or turned it down. And that's anxious and avoidant, right? The anxious tends to have things turned up around the active engagement with what's going on in the relationship. And when things don't meet that, it's really loud in their system, and the avoidance the opposite. And we all have a very intricate equalizer that we've fiddled with to try to orient to a world that couldn't meet our needs all the time and could have been dangerous here or there. And what you're talking about is we can start to create a space where first we allow the experience to happen before we draw a conclusion about how accurate it is to what is actually here with us, within us, and in front of us. And that, to me, that's the doorway to transformation. And it's why this internal locus of relating, this internal locus of agency, is where I start with people. Like when I'm working with people, that's where I want to go first. Now, I think I have a weakness of honoring that for some people, they're not ready to choose to do that. They actually want or need some kind of external experience that goes, oh, like this is safe enough. And so, again, it's both and, but I believe that as soon as we're able to, everything benefits from us beginning to self-source our agency and to self-source our sense of what kind of relating can shift or change here that allows me to hold things with more curiosity, compassion, and grace. And in that, actually start to access something conscious and new.
With other people. So what I feel like I've done a lot of infrastructure here, and I feel like I've finally, or I'm at a point where it's shifting how I'm relating to people externally in a different way. Like my infrastructure allowed me to be calmer and kinder and more collaborative, but I was keeping up a wall. And by the way, I'm like what's called disorganized or dysregulated attachment, where I can be either avoidant or anxious, depends on the situation. And the infrastructure, and then actually very much being with you and Philippe, has, and what we're practicing in Coming Home to Love, has helped me, parts of me, trust me and trust the process of now experimenting with humans.
Yeah.
In a new way. So not just restructuring how I talk to myself, and I now talk to myself very sweetly, but restructuring how I talk to others. And the sweetness was there, but now it's the willingness to share things that I might not have shared, or ask questions that I might not have asked. It's more, testing the waters in a way.
Francesca, we could talk forever. I know we'll talk again. I really enjoyed what we got into today. It felt really juicy and concise and helpful. Again, if you haven't already heard, Coming Home to Love, 7-day attachment retreat in Hawaii, the Big Island near Pahoa, and it'll be April 9th to 15th. If you enjoyed this conversation, get involved in the conversation. Let us know what you thought. If you disagree, we'd love to hear it. Share it if you feel like someone would benefit. And if you are thinking about making a big shift in your relational world, consider coming home to love with us. We'd love to hear. I'll make sure there's links and information about how to access either a call with me to kind of go through things and ask questions, or to book your seat. We'd love to have you.